Hello, everyone, and welcome to the very special kickoff to our All About That Place series. It takes a course over 10 days during this very special series, organized by the Society of Genealogists and celebrating One Place Studies with the Society for One Place Studies, and the many co-sponsors for the program, including, of course, WeAre.xyz. And we're very fortunate today to have the founder of WeAre.xyz, Simon Davies, who's been a warm and wonderful friend to Project Kin since the very beginning, giving us a talk to answer the fundamental question, why study one place? So with that, I welcome you all to participate in the discussion. We will go on for approximately 40 minutes and then break for a discussion. I will be monitoring the chat here, both in Zoom and in the chat at projectkin.org chat, where we're trying to centralize the longer discussions so that we can keep up with them after the event as well. And finally, of course, a reminder that we are recording this event such that it will be available to all Project Kin members via email immediately after, well, within about an hour or two after the event. And everyone who wants to join us can absolutely gain access to this and the entire series of WeAre.xyz materials at projectkin.org AATP 24, and that's all caps AATP 24. So with that, it is my distinct pleasure to welcome to our Project Kin event, Simon Davies of WeAre.xyz. He's an extraordinary entrepreneur, and has in the WeAre platform been exploring what should always have been there as a way for all of us as amateur family historians and all of you as professional genealogists as well in the entire spectrum, a place to collect and compile your stories to share with your family privately, to share publicly with your communities, and we will learn all about how to use this in your own one place studies, even as you have multiple of them, as I'm sure I will be. So with that, let me turn it over to you, Simon.
Thank you very much. I'll just share my screen and try and get that right. I've got a presentation to give me some structure. I should probably say immediately that I'm no expert guru on one-place studies, so you'll see some, my experiences. But the backdrop to this is, we've got this company WeAre.xyz, and we've made a family archiving platform. And it soon became clear that one thing that we love to do as family historians is delve into places and do one-place studies. And like, I've got the village I was growing up in, and then some of our users were doing these amazing. They were using the family archive to create these one-place studies, but it wasn't really fit for purpose. And we were like, wow, let's really go for it, because actually that's so cool. And there's no real platform out there to make a decent one-place study. So we set about doing that. But this isn't, by all means, go and check out our tech, and I'll be showing you some examples. But this really is a discussion between people who know more or less qualified than anyone else about why would we study a place, what type of place, what could our motivations be. I think it could be fun. So please do, let's get interactive and share views. And there are no right or wrong answers. So why study one place? I can give you my perspective, and it's just me, So the big one for me is I love reliving childhood spaces and just feeling a link to those that went before. And it sort of relates down to actually the third bullet point is I'm just fascinated with the passage of time and, what's it all about? Why are we here? When you walk through someone's ghost, in a street, like these pictures on the right here, this is the street I was born in the village of Little Shelford. And in the Victorian picture above, that building on the site of where the bungalow I was born in was a brewery, a Victorian brewery that obviously was demolished. And then these bungalows built, and I was born there. And it just seeing that little girl and this little sibling on the corner. I mean, how many times have I walked around that corner? I just find that deeply, I don't know. I can't even put it into words. So reliving those childhood spaces and linking them into the shadows of those that went before, that's a big one for me. Bringing ancestors to life. So in our family history work, often we just have a pile of addresses, especially sort of like mid 1800s backwards. Um, and I find that going to the places, understanding what it would be like to live and dwell in them with much lesser technology, and especially when they're rural and actually they kind of look the same. If you look at 1840 like tithe maps over here or plat maps in the States, it's like, wow, it's the same. The boundaries are the same. So, like one thing I like to do is I link two places and I use Google Maps and I say, well, how long does it take to cycle between those two places? Because that's roughly a pony and trap. And so you start to get an impression of that space and understand them in the space, even if you can't see them. And I've got here like a fascination with the passage of time. What's it all about? And then the last one for me, and Barbara, remember we talked about this way back. It's like if you'd be interested in a place, especially like one that's on your doorstep, we as family historians, getting at nuggets of breakthrough and intrigue gets scarcer and scarcer and harder fought and harder won. If you're just like studying your local community and environment, your eyes are open to, why is that church steeple off to one side? What happened there? And why is that mailbox got V2R on it or whatever? And you just get a more regular curiosity fix. I mean, and so you come back having collected some observation and you've got somewhere to put it. And at the end there, I said, "What about you?" So I hope that when we open this up, perhaps you could consider some of the reasons why you might want to study one place. What have I put in this next one? So, okay, so let's look at the sorts of types, and these are the things I've thought of just banging them down. Habitations, towns, villages, houses, streets, neighborhoods. I'll put the UK spelling of neighbourhood here. I split between the two, but I know we've got both audiences here. Um, and houses, I mean, house history is so popular at the moment. So I'm really looking forward to people using our platform actually to build house histories. I mean, I've done it a bit. There's a big house near where I grew up, and I got the census records going way back, and it's like, and I was like, oh, this is just outside Cambridge. Like, the department store, Eden Lilly, that we grew up with, Mr. Lilly lived in that house. It was like, oh, it makes sense now. He made all that money from that shop and he owned that house. Yeah, so houses, I think, are quite intriguing. Outdoor spaces, national parks, beauty spots, battlefields. National parks, I'd love to see someone do a national park. I don't know enough about any single national park, but I love them, and both in the UK and all over the world. And then I'm a big fan of Ken Burns's documentary about the formation of the national parks and Theodore Roosevelt's influence in that. If somebody wanted to do Yosemite or Yellowstone or somewhere, that would be amazing. And then battlefields, I put at the end that I am going to go and do a battlefield one place study. So as many of you probably know, I've done a lot of research into this ancestor of mine, my grandfather's cousin, who died at the Battle of Messines or just after it. And the Battle of Messines was one where they'd laid these, it was World War I, 1917, they'd laid these mines under the German trenches. They'd been digging them for a year, and they detonated them at 3:10 in the morning on the 7th of June, 1917. And reputedly, 10,000 poor Germans were obliterated in an instant. And those picture up on the right of those are the traces of those mine holes today. And that's one looking up from one back in the day. So I'm very keen to actually go and do a battlefield. I'm not, the bold here isn't significant actually. So anyway, stately home. So heritage sites, that's the next category. So outdoor spaces, I'd love to see people doing them. I mean, I love the outdoors. Heritage sites, so stately homes, castles, fortresses, country houses. I think that's a real dead ringer for that. And we've been focusing on some functionality to make those to life. So you can't see in our platform at the moment, but Barbara, you'll be excited about this. But we're dealing with images, so you can put invisible hotspots on them. So you could take a picture of a wall, let's say in a stately home, and you can make the picture into a hotspot, and you could open up that object and all sorts of things to bring the interior of places to life. That's what we're working on at the moment. So there's a range of places. What have I forgotten? So when we get to chat, please come up with what I've forgotten. I think it's fascinating to think of what one could do. Oh, and then I couldn't resist putting this up because this is just a thing I love to do every now and again. I've posted these on social over the years actually, but so some of you may recognize them. Apologies for that. But part of the point I'm making is places in passing. So I think there's a discipline which is one place study, which is very close to, if not really, local history. If you look at a website, on a village, a place, or a town. You know, it's a serious piece of study, a body of work, and very thorough. And then I think there's a level above, and I think we'd like to unlock that with our platform, as well as the in-depth ones where you can just take what superficially or a thinner layer of information that intrigues you about a place. So my grandfather was a massive photographer. I mean, we have a box camera he got in 1900, and black and white glass plate photos he took with that, but then color slides all through his life. Just, oh, amazing. And when he retired, they did a lot of traveling. So we've got here, so we've been all over the place, like trying to track down. So he went to, this is Lake Bled. So Lake Bled in Slovenia. You can see his picture and my picture, and we found the spot. And we put my son on it. And that to me is a place, you know. So and I looked into Lake Bled, so that castle up on the hill there. So it was patronized by the Holy Roman Emperor in the 1000s, and it has a wonderful, rich history. And just by having that link, it made me, in passing, very interested in that place. And I can tell you, I stood on that rock with this photo on my phone, so I knew I was there, literally touching the air. It's almost like am I on some portal connection through time? It's just it was very fascinating. And then this was in Norway on the left, and that's my grandmother. She's standing at this viewing point that's still there. And there's a load more photos, but anyway, I put that there because it's quite I just love those sort of photos, and that is to do with places and their impact on you. Okay, so just a few other considerations. And this is like, so is it a solo adventure? You know, is it a personal passion where you want to build it, or is it a group endeavor? In terms of our platform, it can be any of these things. But I think just as the philosophical question, I think a lot of people get a huge amount of satisfaction of building them on their own. Actually, you hear anecdotally on Twitter and places that people are beavering away at this stuff. I don't know the extent to which they should share it, but I can understand that, just this personal, almost like collector-like passion for understanding and collating all the information and history. Um, Family involved. So it's about, like, for example, I wouldn't call it one place study yet. It may not become a one place study, but it is a place and a statement on that place in my family archive. It's the house of my the grandparents, actually, in the last slide, a place called Quiet Hills in Shropshire. And oh, magical memories, primarily in the 70s, some of my cousins into the 60s. And we all got together to pour our memories into this piece that we wrote up about that house. And cousin Joe found the toffee pot, added that into the collection of stuff, and so family involved, and then smaller special interest groups and community projects. So I'm really excited that we are literally talking to, and in one we've in principle agreed to work on a community project within a family history society, where they have a place, and in particular they have all the memorial inscriptions of the cemetery, and we're going to plot and chart all of the memorial inscriptions, all of the people, and everyone in the community can come in and claim their ancestors and like literally be joined into this communal archive for this place and start to build it out. And who knows where it'll go? I mean, they can take it where they want. It might start going into the buildings of the place. It might more about the people that they'll build family trees and see how they're all interconnected. They could claim their own house within that village or that community. So there's a consideration I think we all look at when we're considering doing one of the things. And it might start personal and then expand out. I think that's a logical way of doing some things. And then private or public. So do you want to only members who you give a login to? I mean, just generally philosophically, private, or are you doing something that you want to be a statement and exposed to the public? I think these are things to consider. So now I've got some projects that I'm doing or planning. So I'm doing a City of Cambridge one. There's two reasons we need to have it. Well, the two reasons. One is we need actually a demo, sort of one place study, and you can get to it off our website. And I was brought up just outside Cambridge, so I know a lot about it, and it's personal. I'm able to throw a few personal bits in there rather than it being too vanilla. And also, frankly, to build it quickly, there's so much information on Cambridge. It's a dream place to just build stuff on. It has so much history, and all the people who went to the colleges, the scientists and the literary people. I can see I'm going to be adding to them forever and a day. You've got Isaac Newton, Charles Babbage, Alan Turing, Stephen Fry. Modern people, old people. So that's one I've got going. I've got here the Vale of Montgomery, and I'm going to show you one of these sort of studies I've done where I've been there and I've tried to visualize the streets, or streets, the lanes and the hedgerows and the fields and the and I'm going to bring Kevin in on that one. Kevin the drone, he's added to the color of that one. And then probably my real passion one, which is Little Shelford, the village that I grew up in, where all these nooks and crannies. And I worked on one little facet of my one place study there, especially for to show today that I hope you'll find it a little bit charming. And it's also a very small little thing. It's a place within a place. It's a little corner where a 7-year-old boy used to go and hide away and use his imagination. And then in future plans, I told you about the Battle of Messines, but then this other one is Newton Ferrers, and I've illustrated that on the right. So Newton Ferrers is a village on the south coast of England, in Devon. It's actually one estuary around from Plymouth, our main one of principal, or was our principal naval port. And if you look at down below that estuary with that steamer, that's the Mewstone out there. And if you look above, so my grandfather grew up in Plymouth, and they were living in London and they were due to retire. And my grandfather, they looked all over the country, and my grandfather took my grandmother here because it was around where he grew up. And she said, well, this will do. And it's this beautiful estuary. Now, when they went there in 1970, there were about 10 boats on it. This picture here is quite old, actually. There's probably about 20 times as much. You can't swing a cat. No, I mean, it would be terrifying to ride, take a boat down there, even on the motor. I don't know how they turn around, but it's that estuary you can see there. As a child, from really quite a young age, I had free reign. We had dinghies, and we even had this little dinghy where my aunts stitched together a sail to make me a sailboat out of heavy material, which was completely useless because it has a 6-knot tide and it wasn't a proper sailboat. So the tide would come along and woof, I'd be washed upstream. So we ended up getting a proper dinghy a bit later. And I don't know if any of you ever read Arthur Ransom books, all about the adventures of children in their sailboats on in the Lake District. I used to go. I mapped this estuary as a child and named places like Peak Darien and all these places that were Wildcat Island that were from the book. So it's a magical place to me, and it's drawn me to its history. So its history is fascinating. So it had in the late 1800s, the Baring family of Baring's Bank fame, who created Earls of Revelstoke, was the title they were given. They built this huge house, Membland, up the top of the estuary to the right. And what I found fascinating was, in order to get to it, thinking late 1800s, I mean, there's no real roads. They would catch the steam train from London to Plymouth, and they'd have their own steamer that would take them round to their country house, like this one here. I mean, that's a public one actually, but they had their own, and their guests would come. And so already you're like, oh, that's my adventure playground, but its history was amazing. So I really want to get stuck into that one, and it's an emotional home for my brother and I. We both said we ought to both retire there. So those are the projects I'm looking at, and I'm gonna switch now, and let's go and have a look at some of the stuff that I've been up to. Let's see if I can work this. Need a bit of patience with me here. I'm going to share again and choose this screen. Here we go. Let's see if this works. Fingers crossed. So hopefully you're in my family archive. So this is my family archive if I was a tree, not a one-place study. And this really is to our existing users. So Barbara, question you were asking me before we went on air, as it were. If you go up into archives up here, you can create a one-place study there. That's actually a great family archive, great new one-place study. So I'm going to go into this Cambridge one-place study that I've made. So Cambridge is the center of it. I've written a history of Cambridge, and it has a wonderful history, actually. I mean, it's a real pleasure putting this together. You know, it has Roman center to it, Iron Age, all centered on this mound at the junction of the river, basically. I know where that is. I'm very familiar with it. Here's a plague pit below St. John's College they found. And here's a really old, I think Saxon, definitely Norman church. I mean, look at it. It's so old, that church, and it's right in the middle of Cambridge. And then we have all the colleges. I mean, yeah, you can knock yourself out. Um, I put this bit of history in because I took that photo. It's in a spring outside where the chalk hills start, and the spring water comes out. And in the, what year was it, in the 1600s? 1700? I'll have to look up the exact, I can't remember the time, but oh no, yeah, see, it would be the early 1600s. Um, a guy called Stephen Peirce, the founder of my school, and some other people got together and they donated money, and they channeled the water from these springs all the way into Cambridge. And one of the people who was involved in it was a guy called Hobson. And I don't know if it's a global phrase, but there's a phrase, Hobson's choice. Hobson was you went to him to hire horses, and he was a miserly, nasty sod, and basically you got what you got, and he would give you terrible horses, and that's where the phrase Hobson's choice comes from. But anyway, it's great to be able to pull in your own sense of history, because I'm linked to one of the people who put that there. And then the castle, that's the old picture of the castle, and then bringing it right through to the modern time. So there's a history of Cambridge here. Here are all the pieces that are written. This is the home level, so this is everything that's been written, not classified. We have maps. So for one place study, you can generate maps. Whoa, we've gone to town on maps. So I could take this 1800s map, and what I've done is I've actually stitched an 1881 map onto Cambridge. We just need to add a slider actually, so that you can change the opacity. It does in edit mode, and we'll just add it in non-edit mode. But you'll see if I could choose St John's College, I'll put it in 3D flyby mode. Let's go from St John's College to Magdalen College. And now I'm flying around an 1881 map. Let's go over to Trinity College. Let's go over to Goblin Keys College. And all these places have their own sections. So I go, oh, well, let's go and have a look at Goblin Keys College. So I open up Goblin Keys College, and here I've written up this. And I have a link to Goblin Keys. My father went there. His father went there. And they didn't give me an offer. They didn't let me in. So it's a place of intrigue for the family. But sadly, they were not convinced of my charms. But it's a lovely place to look at, and I do like the connection that we have with it through mum and dad. And dad will take us whenever people come and stay. Dad, who's 89 now, will go off and we'll have a look around his old college, and it has a great history. So let's go back. We were in the map section. Then we've got document section. And here are some documents that I've added. What I did was I actually, in order to put some interesting content in, I strayed just outside Cambridge. Actually, this strays into Little Shelford, but there was a country house in Little Shelford, and this was to the owner. It's a royal invitation to the coming of age party, the 21st birthday party of the Prince of Wales, who later became Edward VII. And it's at Sandringham, the royal residence at Sandringham. And it has wonderful things in it, like here, gentlemen are requested to wear full dress uniform or court dress, with the exception of, oh, here we go, got it here. I've transcribed it. So it's a document, and we have this beautiful transcription capability in our document thing. Our documents is something we really wanted to do well. So where does it say here? Yeah, to wear full dress uniform or court dress, with the exception of the clergy, for whom evening dress was permissible. And there are pictures of, or an artist of the day drew pictures of that reception. And there's Sandringham in Norfolk, to the north of Cambridge. And that's what went on behind that invitation. And then I've put another document. Again, I've slightly pinched this. You'll find this in my Little Shelford collection as well, but this is amazing. Because this, Shelford Parva is Latin for little. So Little Shelford, this lady, Fanny Whale, who was the daughter of the guy that got invited to that party, she basically did a one-place study. This is her one-place study written in the 1880s through to probably about 1920 of the village she lived in. And it's all hand illustrated. It's a great whatever father. There's family history in here. There's detail on these hand-drawn maps. It's just exquisite. It's just amazing. And there's some really interesting stuff in there. Like in the manor house, here's an anecdote. In the manor house in the, I don't know, 1700s, early 1800s, the lord of the manor had been away, I think fighting in wars or something. And a message came through that he had died, and that they were going to deliver his his body in a coffin back. So anyway, this coffin turns up and they put it in the kitchen. And they hear this noise in the night, and the maids come down to discover it wasn't the body of their master at all. It was some burglars with a con. They nailed themselves into this coffin. Oh, one of them had, and they were intent on breaking out and then robbing the place. So wonderful anecdotes she's captured in here. And the thrill to me is loads of these places are places I know. Let's try and find. She does things like pictures of the river where I used to swim. Never quite find the one you want when you want it, but in here there are pictures of the river. We'll come back to that, I guess. There's the mill. The mill has a story which I'll come back to. So that's a document, and it's on the bronze of Cambridge anyway. Media, there's images and albums. I haven't made anything to an album yet. Occasions. So I've put some illustrative occasions. Strawberry Fair here is a big folk fair, about 30,000 people a year. And then the Stourbridge Fair is actually quite interesting in that it was the biggest fair in Europe at one point, medieval fair. Around this chapel was actually the leper colony, and it relates to, I think, to charity for the leper colony that it was established. It's a very old fair, so it's great to be able to record these things. And then artifacts, I've got one so far, but I had to use a bit of a shocker. Got Oliver Cromwell's head. So that's Oliver Cromwell's head. It's actually buried now, but that is his head. And basically, I don't know, those of you who know history, when Charles II came back, even though Oliver Cromwell was well dead, they dug him up and hung him for, I don't know, a day or two. I'm sure he didn't feel anything. And then they chopped his head off and put it on a spike up here, #1. And then next to him, he's got another couple that they dug up. We'll teach them a lesson. And his head was taken down from that spike at some point, and it ended up in his old Cambridge College, Sydney, Sussex. This is his old college, and I think in 1960. So I mean, Oliver Cromwell, he was responsible for the execution of Charles I here, and then this was his own funeral, quite grand, until Charles II came back. But he was responsible for, he was responsible for that. His head was ultimately actually buried, I think like maybe 1960s, but they finally put it to rest and thought it was a bit more respectful. So there's a artifact, and I'm going to keep growing this one now. There's lots of good things to put in here, and people are a delight because I mean, we've got Oliver Cromwell, we've got Charles Babbage, who invented the sort of the origins of the computer. We've got Francis Crick, who along with Watson discovered the structure of DNA. I'll come back to that in a minute. Stephen Fry, wonderful comedian now. Stephen Hawking, of course. I mean, you'll recognize all these people, and they're scratching the surface of it. And then places. So all the places within Cambridge, you've seen already how we have this mapping capability. So if I go in, again, I can start looking around. I can go to 3D, or I can just do it from the surface. But let's go get a bit closer. So this is without that modern, that 1881 map on it. We can just say St. John's, and I love this. And when you're creating a map, you can type in a place, just like if you were using Google Maps or whatever, you start typing, it will look at the database and find a place, but it will also search amongst the places and occasions that you've made, and they'll have grid references, so it'll just drop them straight on. So really, this is you can pin any place, but this is about creating tours through places and ultimately people and all sorts of things. You're going to be able to take anything in your archive, and this is both family archive and the One Place Study archive, and just drop it automatically onto the map. You can go make another map. It knows where that's supposed to go, so you don't have to reposition it. So where are we going? That's Queen's College. Queen's College, you notice there's a apostrophe afterwards. They were founded by 2 queens. My uncle went here, and there was reputedly a ghost of one of the queens, and he claims that he would be woken up at night and he threw a boot at this ghost of the queen. I don't believe him, obviously, but there you go. King's College, very famous. Convent Keys we've been at. So I'll just step out of that to the list. I want to go to, I'm going to go to King's College Chapel. So here's King's College Chapel, the sort of iconic, I mean, that is the iconic view of Cambridge. We're looking across the River Cam, the backs. If I open up King's College in its own section, Wow, it's just phenomenal. It actually was based on the design for Eton College Chapel, which was made a year before. And for the longest time, it was only a place where Eton graduates went. Interestingly, I didn't know that until recently. There's the east window, and then you have this fabulous Rubens painting, Adoration of the Magi, above the altarpiece. So that's the chapel, and I did put in some additional research on the chapel, and what in particular. So when I was a kid, like 10 years old, we had a babysitter, Doreen, and she would take us to the chapel. You didn't have to pay to get in then. They weren't, the colleges were completely unrestricted. If one lay between A and B and it was quicker to walk through it, you just walk through it. Whereas now something like £17 to get into King's College Chapel, but there we go. Doreen persuaded us that this AB scratched into this pillar and the H up there were in fact graffiti from Anne Boleyn and Henry VIII. And you can imagine how much that appealed to a youngster. There it is. Brilliant. And here's King's College Chapel, just absolutely stunning. There's the Adoration of the Magi again. So there's a little bit more of a personal spin on Cambridge. I've got one more personal spin and then I'll move on. And that is Free School Lane. So Free School Lane, this is very much this isn't out of a standard guidebook or Wikipedia. This is a personal little anecdote. So Free School Lane here, in 1615, I think it is, that there was created as a free school. So this guy called Stephen Peirce, a fellow of Gonville and Caius, bequeathed money when he died, make a free school. And that free school became my school, although it's not on that site. It's long since left that site. So it's lovely to have that link to it. But that passage, oh, the things that it's seen. So in that passage, probably where I'm rolling now, is the Cavendish Laboratory. The Cavendish Laboratory, that's where Crick and Watson uncovered DNA. It's where the electron was discovered, the nucleus. I think it's like 30 Nobel Prizes. Here are all these things that we can find on the wall. And at the end of the Free School Lane is the Eagle Pub, very famous Eagle Pub. One thing that it has is this roof, this ceiling, that is graffiti by World War II aircraft pilots from the nearby air bases when they came into Cambridge to drink in between horrible work. So you have that. And Crick and Watson, when they discovered the structure of DNA, they rushed and they held a sort of impromptu press conference in the Eagle Pub. We used to drink it as students when we were like 18 years old, which you can't do in America, but because you have to be 21. But with us, it was 18. But I saw it, this Free School Lane, afresh the other day. I took a friend around Cambridge and we walked down it. And I'd never seen this before. There was this thing on the wall, and it's all about this guy, John Hopkinson. And it basically says that he died 27th of August, 1898. The same day as his son. He's 49. His son is 18. So you're thinking about there's a story there. And this guy, turns out he was quite a brilliant scientist. So he discovered the equivalent of Ohm's law for magnetism, and he also patented three-phase electricity. But his life was cut short because on that fateful day, he was a mountaineering pioneer. He was climbing that ridge with three of his children, and they all fell off and they all died. Really awful. And this is a grave in Switzerland. Really tragic. So it just shows you've known a place all your life, and you can still find new things that well, make you sad in this case. But so here you can see I've started this Cambridge one-place study. So well, I'm going to take you now to my village of Little Shelford. And what I can do here, this is if you're an existing user and you have a family archive, I can go to archive settings, and rather than view it, I can change the focus. I'm going to change the focus to a one-place study, and I'm going to choose the place I want to be the focus. In my existing family archive, I'm going to choose Little Shelford. And then I'm going to open it up. Here is my beloved Little Shelford. Let's just open the map. So there's Cambridge above. Here's Little Shelford down here. My parents now live in this village, Stapleford. I also lived up on that hill there in Great Shelford, but I was born very much in Little Shelford, and it's always drawn me. So I've given a bit of a history of Little Shelford. Here's the brewery anecdote again, as you'll see. And here's the map from 1900, where we went on to live. It didn't exist yet. Well, neither of the places existed. And I've described a bit of background about the history of Little Shelford. And there are various places that I've started creating around Little Shelford. So I'm actually going to start with this one. So this is, let's just zoom in. I can use both fingers and just zoom in. That's where I was born. That's the place where the brewery was. Then we moved all of 200 yards over the road, and that's where I probably spent my childhood up to 10. And this was my backyard. So see this wood down to the left? That's where me and Nicholas Sutcliffe built camps. There's a stream that runs along there, under the railway line, along here, over, and then around the back here. Well, we built bridges, we had little rafting competitions, built little rafts and all sorts of stuff. That was our playground. That wood wasn't there. And then I've mapped out all sorts of various places. There's Hawkston Road, the church. There's plenty of work to be done on the church. I've been to it in it and taken lots of pictures in there down in the building. This was the old house. There was until 1852, there was a big manor house there, but the lord of the manor married this young woman, and the young woman had an uncle who was her guardian. I guess I don't know how her parents were, and he said that the place wasn't good enough for her, so they pulled it down and built a new hall. Not that one actually, Shelford New Hall. So they built this place, Shelford New Hall, because it was good enough for her. Sadly, that burned down in 1928. And by then, the aristocracy was death duties and things were running out of money, and it wasn't insured to its full value, so it never came back. It was a bit sad. There is this other manor house, which I need to delve more into, but there were two manor houses. And then we have King's Mill. And King's Mill, I'm just going to open King's Mill. I did a talk last year for all about that place, based on King's Mill, because lovely pictures. I think I'll put it on here. King's Mill was the site of the famous children's book Tom's Midnight Garden. So if you look at the original cover of the book, the house, that's the mill house, and the author was the daughter of the miller, and she based Tom's adventures in the garden of the mill house. And this is Graham the gardener, and he showed us around. So I contacted the owners, and I said that our gardener will show you around, which was very nice of him, and he was a lovely guy. And I said, oh, in the book, there's a gardener, Abe. He said, oh, I've never read the book. What do you mean you never read the book? Anyway, so I told him he's the gardener in the book. And again, look, if you look at the detail on that arch there, it's the same as the actual building. And we had a wonderful look around there. So that lovely link into that history. So that's obviously adds a huge richness to this one place study. And this is the River Cam, which was below King's Mill. And this is where, well, these are the pictures I was trying to find. This is where we swam as children. We had a rope across the river, the trees falling out down that had it. That muddy bank would have been all slick because as kids, all the village kids used to swing across it. I've done a map of all the Cam tributaries, and my dad and I went out and found the sources of all the rivers that went through the village. So that's a bit about the River Cam, but you can see how I just love it. I'm just so in love with this whole place. And I won't go too much further. There's one special place where I made this 2 weekends ago, especially for today, and that's the tunnel. So I remember I said that this was my adventure playground. So I was living here, 30 Hawkston Road. This is the tunnel. We had camps in this wood. I'll go to the tunnel. The tunnel. Oh, something's gone wrong there, actually. Let's put it down. No, I'm going to re-add in the video. I had a video in there. For some reason it's failed. This tunnel, as a child, like literally like 7 years old onwards, we would stand on we would go on the railway line and put our ear for the line until we could hear a train coming. I think I've written it here. We pressed child-sized ears to the hot metal and waited for the periodic static-like scratching sounds that predicted the alarm would soon be sound for the barriers to fall. And I don't know if you've ever done this, but if you put your ear to a rail, it goes, it's like lightning strikes when the train is miles away, but you know it's coming. And then would charge down this bank and into this tunnel and stand in it, waiting for the train to go over. So it's just a great thing that we did as kids. And Fanny Whale, in her one place study written in the 1800s, she sketched it. This is that same crossing, and you can see the tunnel where the water comes out to the right. That's an 1800s sketch. And this is the same crossing in 1851 and 1863 and then today. And the other thing I loved about this was when Graham the gardener was showing us around Tom Smith Night Garden, he revealed that he was born and brought up in a house just over the back of there. So he was about 20 years before me. And do you know what? He used to put his ear to the railway line and listen for trains. He didn't go in the tunnel, but he did the same thing, and it was just brilliant. That had a real bonding on that. So I could keep that, but I think that's you get the gist. So and like we have occasions. So far, I've put the Silver Jubilee in. I need to put an article there, but I've got in the album. I've got all the pictures from when we were kids, and that's me, the pirate, the Green Silver Jubilee in 1977. That's my little brother in the policeman's helmet. So really capturing personal as well as history in there. And I think that's about. I think that's about it, really. Let me come out of share. Do I have anything? Oh, yes, I've got one more thing. Sorry. One more thing. That's the ancestral lands. Ooh, as I come back, I can see Ruth here. Hi, Ruth. So again, if I could have a look at ancestral lands, I'm just going to switch my archive back to family archive mode, focus. And this, by the way, this switching thing came back because obviously we've made it after the event for people who already have family archives, but typically you probably start a one-place study on its own. So let's go in, and I want to show you, here's my grandfather. And then I want to go to my great-great-grandfather, fine beard he's got, and his wife, Martha. I mean, it's amazing we have these photos of them, really. And I did a piece on them recently about when they met and how to visualize. So I used our platform where you can make these wonderful subtrees. You just go click, 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 click people, and it just makes these little subtrees to illustrate it. That's my grandfather. That's my great-grandparents who were first cousins. There's plenty of first cousins in this lot, I tell you. And then these are my great-grandparents up here. We even have pictures actually of their parents, which is amazing. Now, this is what I was telling you about earlier. So he was born here on the right, and she was born there on the left. So this is a place. This is the Vale of Montgomery. So I took fascination. So this isn't really a study yet, but it's a description and an investigation of the fabric of the place that they grew up in, trying to think how they might have met, what it would have been like to get between the two places. And my parents and my son, we toured all around here getting to feel it. And it's a big basin. If you watch me sweep around like this is the Vale of Montgomery. It probably goes way up there as well. And there's a ridge along here running up to the county town of Montgomery, which has a castle. Anyway, this is where you can see I did a Google thing of how long it would take to cycle. So I reckon that's the pony and trap time between the two of them. How did they meet? Both parents farmers. Was it in the market town of Montgomery? Although they would have been maybe in the orbit of Bishop's Castle. I think they were both Wesleyan families. Could have been like that. Anyway, they got married. There's a marriage certificate. And if we open it up, you can see more clearly the Vale of Montgomery. So there's Pentracoon, where one of them was born, and then we go over to Llandussel. This is where she was born. Martha was born here. But more, if I just collapse that, I think where's your heads are on top of my control. I'll move your heads. No, move your heads. I'll just spin it over. So I'm just going to rotate it a bit. This is great, the way you can manipulate it. Let's move your heads again, so I can get over here. So you can see, let's just bring the list down again. So there's pentagrams down here. So let's back up. So there you go. So you can kind of get, there's this ridge up here. This is actually the England-Wales border. And then there's these hills up on the right here. My dad and I climbed up one of them to look out over the whole of the Vale of Montgomery like this. You can see this basin. There's the River Camel in the bottom of it that flows into the River Severn. And then you've got this ridge to Montgomery, and then over it, you've got Llandyssil. So I'm trying to, and we made this tool to really get a handle on visualizing. But then what we needed to do, what I needed to do was, let's go and get Kevin involved. So this is Kevin the drone, and bandwidth allowing. Kevin.
That could be filtering on the site you're in, not a bandwidth problem that is blocking YouTube.
Oh, really?
That's a thought, because those are both YouTube things that are not playing.
No, it's not good before. It could be my Wi-Fi. Oh, I'm in a law firm. Oh, no, here we go.
Okay.
So here's the intro. There's Martha and her parents, and you can see the two spots. So this is looking from Llandyssil to Bishop's Castle. And this is on that ridge. There's this World War I memorial. I've sent Kevin up. I'm looking towards Montgomery. That's a stunning little market town. And where am I going to look now? Where are you going, Kevin? So now he's looking up the Vale of Montgomery. And to the right there, where the stop it. Yeah. So yeah, up here somewhere. Oh no, hold on. I'm getting ahead of myself. Keep going. That's Corndon Hill. Now I'm starting to look up the real Vale of Montgomery, obviously into the sun of it. And then what I've done now is I've come back over my shoulder, and I'm looking back the other way. I'm looking down to the village of Llandyssil. So she's down, tucked away behind, and we're flying down. And that field, this farm was his son's, so her brother's actually. And there's a very steep ridge here. Look at those birds flying. I won't see birds from above. And they lived in this farm, Plas Robin, on this corner about here, which sadly was pulled down in 1970. And I've been all over that village trying to find anyone to have a photograph of it. But these are all their fields. But you get a real sense of where she lived. They would farm these fields around here. And there's the village of Llandyssil there. That we've just flown over where they're buried. The parents are buried. And then I'm going to fly back up the ridge to myself. I'm standing on the hill somewhere up there. There I am. The thing I hate about the drone is when it comes down, it shows the bald spot on the top of my head. It's really annoying. And then here's the tithe map for the time, and I've inked in the field. So this is up from the right, coming down the hill towards Plas Robin was their house that's being knocked down. I looked around it, there's a bungalow on it now, and the guy showed me around. There's some walls left, and he pointed to a patch over here where he said, "Oh, stuff grows really well there. I think that's where they had their toilet, outside toilet." But then we go to Edward. So Edward Davies, he's up at the other end of the valley. And so here's his perspective on things. So Kevin goes up again. That's the title page. I'll just do some fast forwarding. And up he goes. There's that hill, Corndon, straight ahead of us. And to the left is the Vale of Montgomery. So I'm flying over to this ridge that then goes down towards this farm, Pentracoon. I'll just speed him along. It was a beautiful day, you can see. So but these are now all his fields. I've got all the tithe maps of them. You can see the fields. There's even an imprint of a building that his nephew lived in, scorched in the earth, even though it was destroyed but over 100 years ago. And down there is Pentracoon just ahead. And you're looking out that ridge in the background. That's where I was standing before, and Montgomery is down there. And Martha, his future sweetheart, lived over the other side of that ridge. And then here's the farm, Pentracoon. And then I turn back and come back up the valley. And actually, it's a big family valley in that his father-in-law lived here, his son farmed there, I think it was. They were all over it. And I even found that the farm on the other side of the ridge in England was owned by a person who would move away from there, and his granddaughter would marry the grandson of my guy, the father of this guy, and they just would never have known it. That was the future. So that's exploring a place in its essence and what it would have looked like and felt. Again, not like pure one place study as such. That's more like the little shelf thing that I'm doing and the Cambridge thing. But places in general. Why study a place? That's one of my reasons is to get under the skin of where we came from. And I've nearly done that. I'll just go back to the slides and finish off. So those are my projects. I do just want to call attention to the Society of One Place Studies, who really are our inspiration for all of this. Amazing body. I don't know if any of you have signed up to it. I certainly am. I get their wonderful magazine digitally, periodically. So destinations. I can't believe how much stuff they put in there. That's their website. They have regular talks, obviously, and I just want to take my hat off to them and encourage anyone to join that if they haven't. I'm just going to, I think you're going to get this a handout, and then I'll just flag some talks that I'm doing next week, which will reiterate on some of this stuff. But this will be in the handout, and that is it. Here's some details for you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Simon. That's just fabulous. I think the answer to the question, why study one place, is because we live in multiple places, and our ancestors lived in multiple places, and we don't understand them until we understand their places. And you've created a fabulous way to zoom in and out of the places. Then the chat, there was a lot of discussion of, or some of you kindly referenced my former startup Ponga and the ways in which we had created the ability to go in and out of an image in that case, but you've done it with maps and storytelling and context, and then taken your database structure for the WeAre archive and created a way to bring the stories right into it, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
That's just brilliant. I'd like to, in our remaining time, as my video syncs up, let me just turn my video off to make it behave. I'd like to open it up to questions. There has been, many of you have seen that I've been trying to drive chat over into the chat from Substack so that we can have that persist and have it integrate in with links and so on we can view later. That will also be linked into the notes that I will be sharing with this recording to all Project Kin members. And I think I've got all of you as you've signed up to share that with you as well following this talk. Open it up to questions. Please go ahead and unmute yourselves and turn on your video. I will open up the gallery view and be delighted to have this conversation.
I had a question, and it may have been answered while I was reading chats and things. You have a lot of things in there, and I noticed you've got links, obviously links to YouTube. Is some of the text you have in there, is it a link to somewhere, or is it actually in your account? Like the pages you had of a story, for example.
So everything is in there except, so there's really quite powerful interlinking. So if you've done a piece, so let's say you're writing a block of text, you can pull up a menu of everything else that's in your archive and embed a link so that you can hop between things. So that one thing I didn't show you.
Inside your archive, not out of your.
In the archive, but not the video actually. So the video, that's the exception. That
right. Okay.
Strips it from a YouTube link. Although we are going to add video storage. Actually, we do have our own setup. We just haven't released it yet because that I think Barbara, you've been quite encouraging about this to actually have private indexed video storage. Quite a thing. I don't know about you, but I have had these wonderful camcorder videos going way back and I've digitized them all and I've made them into these tiny little cliplets, and I think there are lots of us have those lying around. Yes, anyway, for the future.
Perfect. Thank you. That was very inspiring. I mentioned in the chat I may have to retire completely so I can start doing all this research on places now too.
I think it would be a happy retirement. So many places, so little time.
Go ahead, please, Paula.
Yes. Well, thank you very much for the presentation, and it does give me a couple of ideas. In regards to my genealogy, there's a town that I want to specifically try to work with in gathering data for, because a lot of my relatives settled there upon coming in the mid-1800s. But it also gives me an idea. My father, of one of his many hobbies, he collected postcards on our travels throughout 25 years of vacations. And when he fell in love with a place, when we went to sales, your weekend sales of items, his main thing was to go after postcards. So if he fell in love with a particular place, such as the Grand Canyon or San Francisco, he would start buying up postcards. So now I'm going through his books. My dad passed away several years ago, but my mom passed away 2 years ago. So now I'm gathering all that stuff up. So I am taking those postcards and I'm scanning them. I don't know if I'm going to forward the cards on to be sold or such, because I don't really have the means to keep them. But also he collected from a person who had a lot of 1950s, 1960s items that they picked up on their trips in the Midwest. So think of the things, if you went to a restaurant, you pick up the paper cover off the table, the brochures, and my mom collected brochures too. So I have boxes of Florida stuff. So this kind of goes, I can move that stuff into that direction and create places. And if you're saying that I don't have to do a general city, I can do multiple things. I have now something to be able to use that stuff to go create those at many places. So I'm glad to have an open idea.
I think that's brilliant. I think that the one thing that we've really worked on that I think is transformative is this 3D globe, being able to put things anywhere. So if you can identify where those postcards are, you can literally make them the picture as you fly from one to the other. And we need to add this next, where you can program the viewpoint when you arrive, but it's roughly there, you know. So like I've got loads of 1800 pictures of Little Shelford, and I've on my test server, not here, I've stitched them down the street so that you can like move down the streets, look at these old pictures. I mean, those postcards of your photos, that'd be amazing to actually see them in context of where they are. I mean, it's just fabulous.
Correct. And it was funny because he fell in love with Catalina in California. And he collected many postcards, and when they went to Catalina, he donated that group to them when he was there. But each one of his books has at least 150 postcards in them, and there are probably, I know, 10 books I still have to go scan. I've only scanned 3.
I'd say I think it's a wonderful hobby. I could get drawn into that hobby. I think Anne Larkham would say you love that.
Well,
don't you?
The side thing is my dad created a hobby club in the 1970s for people who collected anything dealing with the airlines. So back in the 70s, when we had so many different airline items and were memorabilia, he created a hobby club, and there's a convention somewhere in the United States or in Canada ever since. And it's still going on. So again, those are people making pictures of planes. And I know, like in England, you do spotting of their tail numbers and such. We don't get that intricate here. But, again, postcards and pictures, anything off the airplane. So, and I have that stuff to deal with.
Well, when you digitize and preserve it, you need to talk to Anne, our resident photogenealogist. She'll tell you how to preserve those old pictures, postcards.
I love the idea of having photographs and locating them on a map. I just think that really would bring them to life and put them in context. That would be brilliant.
I do like that idea too.
My family traveled everywhere all the time, and a large part of my collection of my mother's stuff are these photo books of her travels to places I don't know, with all these people I don't know. And I was thinking, I don't know what to do with these albums. Now I do.
And I haven't even done my slides yet. I have a large tote container of slides to go through.
Yeah.
I've been enhancing my photos. I've got quite a lot of postcards of my place, and I've been using my heritage to colorize, and that's given the best results. And I've been working with the new One Place study interface now for a couple of weeks, and mine are starting to appear on the streets. I've done one street. Every house on the street is on there, and to be able to put them on the map, it's not a live site yet, but it will be in a month or two, because I'm replacing my old site. WordPress doesn't cut it anymore for a one-place study, not in the way you really want it. But to do this with the photographs is fantastic.
That's brilliant. Well, I mean, we'll keep trying to enhance that then. That's really encouraging feedback. Thank you. That's very helpful.
And stitching maps on is easy as well, Simon, because I've done it.
Oh,
I put a chunk of tithe on. So those old maps onto the new map, it's not difficult to do.
Yeah, great. Well, I'm glad to hear that, because I thought that might be a bit fiddly. And you can put any sort of map on, like, so I've put like all the reefs of Belize. It's like just a schematic, beautifully drawn sort of thing of all these reefs, and you just put it doesn't have to be an old map, it can be whatever you like. Word of caution, you need to buy them. So like those maps I've bought them. So in order to do it, remember those copyright here, but I did the right thing. You can get it quite quickly.
A question for you, Simon. One of the reasons, as many people here know, that I'm so devoted to WeAre is the flexibility that you give of access control on a per person basis. When you create a place and can you decide to make that entire place public? And how does that affect other parts of your archive?
So if you're creating a standalone one-place study,
Yeah.
then you have the same granularity of permissions, and you can make it public or private. So exactly the same.
So it's like a blog in the sense that I'm making that one page or set of pages public, but nothing else in my archive.
Oh, I see.
Or am I
Right.
treating the place like a person and giving them access rights?
So we haven't made any differentiation between I've lost the Zoom thing, between if it's out of your family archive and you're just changing the focus. We haven't done anything to change the privacy of that. We could. That's an interesting idea. If you're doing a standalone place like the Cambridge one, I have to decide whether that's a public or private archive.
Oh, I see. Okay. Okay.
And the member, well, let's say I do the Village of Little Shelford, because I quite want to go to the guy I know in the village who's done the original one place study, which is an awful website. You know, it's horrendous. And I've started. I say, look, I'll invite you. I'll make a standalone one that's not part of my family archive. I'll invite him in and say, look, have it, take it, extend it. Everything you've done that's just so inaccessible in this other thing, and start inviting people in the village who want to partake in it. And I would imagine the optimum setup for that is that it's a private community whereby only the members can see it, or they do turn it on public, because it will still hide living people. Yeah, mostly the bent of these things is yesteryear, not generally capture the rest of it. Whether in the future we add in an adjunct of almost like an area which becomes a community thing separately, this would more be the place history, the local history component that they could link off of their sort of Gazette, whatever community that they've got.
Right. I'm thinking about the Berkeley Architectural History Association, which has these wonderful stories about different houses in the neighborhood.
Yeah. I mean, to be honest, this is a shoe. We're talking already to some bodies who have lots of historical buildings, and they're just like, this is great. And that, I think that could really
National Historic Registers. There ought to be one for every single one.
And it sort of liberates these places, right? It brings them out, and anyone who's got an association with it, you can give it to them, and you can control their access. But like, if you have a stake in it, you come in and partake. You know, there was a guy I spoke to ages ago that I must go back to, who was doing something to do with it was North Yorkshire waterways. And he said, we got all these family trees of these 20 waterway families, historic families, the people who worked the canals and the this, that, and the other. Could you? And at the time we couldn't. And now you could. It's like he was saying, we want to get the descendants of each of those families to take control of their stream of the family. And anyway, we'll see. I'm sorry, I'm getting a bit carried away, but yes, lots of places to go with it.
Well, we have run a little late. I want to, I'm going to turn off the recording so that the recording will preserve everything that we've had up to now. and be accessible from the Project Kin website and the projectkin.org/capital AATP 24. And you are all very welcome to continue staying here for the continued conversation if you'd like.